I bet you never asked the question, what if Sturgill Simpson, Pink Floyd, and Mars Volta had a baby and then raised it on cornbread and bottles full of moonshine? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got the answer for you, and that is Waylon Whitson and Stephen Cottle of Technicolor Nightmare.
Yes, sir.
Who wrote the about section on y'all's Facebook page? Because it's great.
That was me.
Dude,
that was
good job. Like, the more I kept reading it, the more I found like the little subliminal things that you put in there. Like the band Latin. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah.
How y'all boys doing?
Doing good, man. It's
Hanging in there.
Monday morning.
Yeah.
Monday afternoon, rather, at this juncture. Doing good.
Yeah. And we've been trying to make this happen for a while now. Finally made it happen.
Since what, November?
It's been a while, dude.
A minute now.
It's been, and a few speed bumps along the way, but we made it happen, by gosh.
Got around that COVID.
Yeah. so you got a new album on the way that I've been a fan of y'all since I first watched the music video that y'all released last year. And I know that rock exists in the hills of Eastern Kentucky, but nothing like y'all's, man. It's how would y'all even consider, like, what genre do you put yourselves in? Because rock is such a weird genre because there's so many subgenres in it. What do y'all call yourselves?
Well, we try not to.
We try not to define it ourselves. And I mean, there's all the subgenres, all that stuff. We just like to call it rock and roll, man.
Well, that's what it should be.
There's some funky, bluesy influences in there. Sometimes we get heavy. Sometimes we get a little psychedelic. I mean, it's all over the place, but it's rock and roll. Just as straightforward as we could put it,
I think it makes sense to put it like that.
Yeah,
because
why square yourself away in a little tiny box, Yeah.
Well, whenever artists start putting themselves in boxes, that's it just ain't good. That's when the music gets repetitive, songs sound the same.
Boxes were created so that they could figure out what demographic would like what artist or what song more. So they put everybody in a little box and they ship them off to that part of the world where they'll sell the most.
Yeah.
And without being intentionally different, that's just the way it came out. It's the way you hear it. It's not like we sat around and decided, okay, this next song's going to be totally different from the first one. That's just what happened that day. That was just the general mood of the day. A lot of our stuff's written through improvisation. So
cool, man.
It's all different, but it's the same. And I think we've maintained that pretty well. You know who you're hearing, even though it's not like the song you may have heard before.
I get what you're saying. I get it. So y'all's demographic, have you noticed any demographic kind of clinging to you more than others or anything?
Well, I run a lot of Facebook ads and stuff like that because you just have to. Yeah. In this day and age with social media, and Facebook's where most of our audience is, and I would say it's probably like 60% like 25 to 34 males for the most part, like just people around our age, dudes our age that like hearing some more authentic rock music, stuff that's not super duper polished and programmed to death,
Well, see, to me, y'all sound like bands, and I'm not trying to categorize y'all or anything, but this is just like my opinion whenever I first heard y'all. Like bands like Saliva or Hell Yeah, kind of like the rock that you heard right after grunge kind of died out.
Post-rock.
Yeah, like I never,
post-grunge, right?
I never really knew what to call bands like, of course, Saliva and Hell Yeah. What was the other one? Mudvayne and bands like that.
Stabbing Westward.
Yeah, exactly. And y'all have that sound, but I've just never been able to kind of like put that into a category.
I think the official name for that genre of rock is, or like the most agreed upon, is post-grunge.
Really? That's
like Breaking Benjamin, all that kind of stuff, that vein. Yeah. I think that's what most people call it.
Oh, that was a style of rock that, not a lot of people talked about.
I'll take that because that was like the last time that rock was commercially viable.
Yeah.
It was around that time period.
Well, you had Click Click Boom from Saliva. You Wouldn't Know by Hell Yeah. I mean, the list goes on and on.
I love Mudvayne. So.
What was that one song of theirs?
Dig, probably.
No, it's another song. It was the first time that I ever heard Mudvayne.
Happy, maybe?
No. This, man, whenever the first time that I heard bands like them and Seether and stuff like that, I was it's when I grew up in Georgia. And I remember on Saturday nights at 2 o'clock in the morning, there was this local TV station that would play rock music videos. And I was raised like on classic rock, you know, with my dad was like 60s hippies era. My mom was 70s kind of progressive rock. And my brother was just all out hair metal. But I'd never listened to a lot of the new bands. I just listened to a lot of the older bands. But yeah, they played like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd always stay up and watch that, and that's how I learned about bands like Mudvayne and Seether and all that. Man, I can't even find the song that I'm thinking about. That's how old it is. But hey, Mudvayne is a great band, though. You never hear people talk about those, even Saliva.
I think they're starting to get a bit of a cult following going again. Like, people are starting to look back at that time period and be like, oh, okay, there's some pretty dope music coming out there.
Do What You Do. That was the song I was thinking about. I
don't know if I even know that one.
So it's a good one, man.
I'll check it out after this.
That's the first Mudvayne song that I ever heard. But yeah,
we've got a lot of influence from like progressive rock and stuff like you were talking about too. Like, I grew up, my dad loves Pink Floyd and Jethro Tull and stuff like that. I grew up listening to a lot of that stuff, and then, you know, I was a young angsty teenager around the time period that you're talking about. So I was, you know, I discovered metal and things of that nature then. There's a little bit of everything in what we do. I mean, it's all over the place.
See, I like the message that y'all are pushing right now with the whole rock is not dead. Because to many people that just follow mainstream music, that may seem like the case, but it's not the case at all. You just got to dig for it a little bit more.
Look around a little bit. And shout out, we also just dropped some new T-shirts with that on the back of them. So
yeah, man. I like the hoodie that y'all dropped. Yeah. That looks awesome.
Yeah, they're good looking designs.
Who do y'all and man, the designs are awesome because they're futuristic, they're psychedelic. I don't know exactly how to explain it. Who makes y'all's designs?
That would be me.
Do you do everything?
I do a lot of things, man.
What made y'all run with the skull? What's the whole thing about the skull?
This is reminiscent of the last time we were in this room.
It's not just a skull, but it's basically what the album's about. He's a disembodied head that has special powers and
comes from another dimension. His name is Scotty.
That's what you named it? You actually has a name?
Yeah,
cool,
his name's Scotty. And he's kind of like the driving, motivating force to the whole concept behind the album and who he is and what he wants and things of that nature. I mean, it's difficult to go into because, man, if we were really trying to explain the concept to you, we'd be here for 2 hours trying to like lay it out. It's like if you ever watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, you know, the Pepe Sylvia when he's got all the stuff on the pinboard behind him, and he's like, right here, man, and it's like everything's connected. That's what it would be like. So,
it's good that y'all put that much thought into it though, because it makes the music interesting,
right?
And you can tell that the artist actually cares about what it is, other than just trying to make a hit record or whatever.
Well, this day and age, everybody just releases singles. It's one single after another, and you don't really see a whole lot of concept albums.
Yeah. Is that what y'all are trying to do with all of your albums? Like concept albums, like one song leads into another?
Maybe not all of them.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the tentative plan, is to continue the story and for whatever amount of time it's natural. You know what I mean? Like if it comes a point where we're trying to shoehorn music into a concept, then let it go. You know, whatever's natural. That's what we generally try to go for.
Well, the whole concept albums back in the day, I mean, that was it made the music more than just music. Right. It was an experience.
Right.
Like Pink Floyd's The Wall is a great example because you had the movie that came with it. You had the album that you couldn't just listen to number 6.
Or Sturgill Simpson's Sound and Fury, man. That is so sick. That anime is so sick.
And just like whenever you put on a record, like you can't just jump around. You have to sit and listen to it to the front to the beginning.
Right.
And it's almost like a movie that you just kind of imagine whatever in your head.
That was like it's exactly like a movie. I want each song to feel like a little vignette of its own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where we kind of straddle that line. Like we wanted to do a concept album, but we also wanted each song to be viable on its own. You know, so you could pick any song to listen to, but the optimal way to experience it would be front to back, listen to the album.
well, Pink Floyd had, another brick in the wall, but if you really want the experience, you have to listen to Happiest Days of Our Lives right before it. You don't see that often nowadays in music.
Spaces and Young Lust.
Exactly. And,
big into Pink Floyd.
Oh, man.
Dude, your shirt, man, where did you get that? I've never seen that kind of a Pink Floyd shirt before.
Honestly, man, I think my old lady picked that up at a Goodwill.
Love Goodwill. Shout out to Goodwill.
Thrift store, baby. Shout out to Goodwill for sure.
They got all kinds of good stuff.
Man, yeah, dude, I probably own at least 15 Pink Floyd shirts. And we were talking about collecting vinyl right before we hopped on air, and that's probably like the most vinyl that I have is Pink Floyd. I try to sort those out because, it's great to listen to an album like Dark Side of the Moon and just front to back.
I probably have more Pink Floyd inspired tattoos than I do T-shirts, though.
What kind of tattoos do you got?
I mean, I got bricks on the wall.
Yeah.
All over, and like that's an ambigram that says Pink one way, and you turn around, it says Floyd that way.
Oh, that's sick. That's so cool.
They mean a whole lot to me.
Gigantic amount, and I don't think anybody's ever done the concept album better than Pink Floyd, or just rock and roll in general. I don't know that anybody will ever meet or surpass Pink Floyd and what they did.
I can agree with that.
Hundreds of years beyond their time, we still haven't caught up with them.
Perfectly timeless. Like that music will be relevant forever.
And if you look, nowadays it's easy to create something that's experimental and weird and all that. You just throw a bunch of random stuff together. Back in the day, man, they had to splice tape. They had if people like really read into the behind the scenes on Pink Floyd albums, it's crazy. The time. What was the producer of their album? Alan.
Oh yeah, Alan something. You said it too quick. Alan.
Yeah. He was a solo artist himself. The Alan something
Alan
project.
Alan Parsons.
Alan Parsons.
Alan Parsons project.
Yeah. He was the producer on that album. And for time, whenever you hear all the clocks, he actually went to an actual antique store and recorded all of the clocks individually.
He did a good job with a field recording for that time period, man. Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like they just and the pennies. I forget how they done it, but it's all this cool information behind the scenes.
Pink Floyd has left an indelible mark on all music that has existed since they were a thing. Like synthesizers would have never, I don't think they would have ever caught on like they did had it not been for Pink Floyd pioneering that and popularizing it. I mean, you wouldn't have it's kind of weird to think that you wouldn't have Ain't Nothing But a G Thing if it wasn't for Pink Floyd. Yeah. But
it's true, though. That's the truth. I've never thought about it that way.
They use synth and arpeggiators and stuff in their music when nobody else was doing it. And then their music got really popular, even though a lot of that was a part of it. And that part of Dark Side is you listen to that
John
and you're
Carpenter,
like,
the 80s.
That's all the precursors to all this digital stuff that everybody uses now to create music. Like it wouldn't be what it is if they had not done what they did at the time.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been
completely shifted the paradigms of popular music, I think.
And it was almost like poetry too. Like if you read the lyrics, it's so deep. That's one band that it breaks my heart that will probably never get to go to a reunion show.
Right. No, we won't. There's 2 out of 4 members are dead and gone. We'll never ever see that.
And the other 2 couldn't care less about each other. Yeah. So
I know, and stuff like that breaks my heart, man. I mean, I'll still try to go to a solo show whenever we're actually able to go to big shows like that again. But yeah, it breaks my heart, man.
Who would you go see? Would you go see Roger or would you go see Gilmore? I got a hard hitting question for you.
There's a point in seeing them both individually.
I'm trying to think of who I would see first.
You had to pick one, and your budget was for one of them this year.
Oh man,
would it be Waters or Gilmore?
Yeah, same day, 2 different arenas. You had to pick one.
That's a tough one.
Gilmore. I don't know. Gilmore. I'm just going to say Gilmore.
I'd probably go see Roger Waters just because everybody else is going to see Gilmore.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah. Somebody's got to hold it out for him.
Yeah.
And your bass player.
He was a big part of all that awesome lyrical content and theatrics behind all that.
But you want to go hear another guitar player play the solo in time? That's not David Gilmour.
That was a tough one.
You gonna go hear stuff from The Wall with David Gilmour playing the lead guitar and having someone else singing all those parts instead of Roger Waters.
That's a good one.
Turnabout's fair play.
I just always respected Gilmore as a musician, and that's why I would like to see him. But yeah, man, that's a tough one. God, that was a tough one.
Gilmore's the expectation for what you ought to be if you're going to pick up a guitar. Like, if you're going to do anything, do what that guy does, because that guy is awesome.
Did y'all listen to their last album? It was a few years ago, and it didn't get as big as it should have.
I don't know that I've checked that one out, man. I'm stuck in the old stuff. I hate to be that way. I generally try to be very forward thinking about stuff.
Well, it was weird anyway. Like it was very experimental, and they only sing on the last song, and it's just for a little bit. I can't even tell you what the name of it is. That's how popular it got.
Is it something like In the Rivers? Was it something about rivers?
Well, yeah, the cover is like somebody in a river. I think it's like something about time. When I don't know. I'll look it up here.
The Timeless River?
That sounds so good.
Is that?
You're on to something there.
That sounds familiar to me.
One of my favorite albums by them is
Division Bell. The Endless River.
The Endless River, 2014.
Yeah, it was named after that.
What was it named after?
Some of it is like, if I'm not mistaken, I think some of it is B-sides from Division Bell that Gilmore reworked, and
maybe,
if I'm not mistaken.
Division Bell, it began.
That's where I kind of fell off. I'm not big into. I don't know the Division Bell very well.
It was pretty synth heavy.
A lot of people will hate on The Wall and like they love Dark Side more than they do The Wall, but man, The Wall's where I'm at.
Okay, like, I got a question for y'all then.
That grooviness.
Dark Side or The Wall?
I'm The Wall all the way.
Animals.
That's a good one. I like Uma Guma. That's one of my favorites.
Uma Guma is.
We can't say what that stands for, but people can go Google that on their own time.
Uma Guma, that was back in the Sid Barrett days.
Yeah, man.
So it was out there.
A little flavor of weird. That's what's up.
Well, that was another thing too. They kind of started the whole. Well, I guess it's arguable because you had bands like the Grateful Dead and Jimmy too that was pushing the whole psychedelic scene, but they're the ones that really carried it on into the 70s. Yeah. I would say if Jimmy lived to the 70s, who knows what he would have done with psychedelic rock.
It's hard to say.
It's kind of like the other psychedelic stuff is like feel good psychedelic. Ooh, we're having a good time dancing at a music festival on drugs, and then there's Pink Floyd, which is like an introspective journey. You know what I mean? Like it can get dark at times. It's probably going to.
I never like really. Well, they pushed. Grateful Dead pushed the psychedelic culture, but as far as music, I just kind of consider them jam band.
Jam band. They started jam banding. Like, give them that. They started the whole jam band thing. Now there's a million bands that do exactly what they did, exactly the way they did it.
Yeah,
good.
Good on.
I Grateful Dead never really did get me. Like Floyd, you can't even put any of those people in the same category. Because you got the Grateful Dead, they did their jam bandy thing, which had elements of blues. But Jimmy played the blues, which had elements of psychedelic stuff. But Floyd added this whole other
theatrics,
the theatrical, a deeper concept. I feel like it's just a whole big deeper. It's much, much deeper and more poetic than the rest of them.
But have you seen that meme that's like Pink Floyd be like, "We live in a society," and then a 15-minute guitar solo? Have you seen that meme? That's basically what Animals is. It's just we live in a society.
But the thing is, though, man, it's just a trip from front to the beginning with a Pink Floyd album. The first album that I ever heard by them was Dark Side of the Moon, and I remember me as a little kid, my dad playing it for me, and it just blew my mind.
Right.
I'm like, this is music? Like, I couldn't believe that it was this, that music could be that complex.
Right.
They kicked off Paul McCartney on that album. Yeah. He was supposed to be featured on there, and they said no. Yeah, he like him and Paul McCartney and his wife like recorded stuff for it and everything.
Go back to the stuff that Pink Floyd was doing in the 60s and like the earliest parts of their career, there was a lot of shared influence between those two bands.
Oh yeah, well
the Beatles and Pink Floyd kind of came up together in the same kind of scene.
Well, they were both recording at Abbey Road Studios too,
right?
And they were wanting to have like a bunch of just random people doing the voices and stuff on the album, like the one guy that done the laughing. I forget who that was. I think that was like Nicole Kidman's dad or something like that. That was like some weird fun fact. But
see, it's like, but to them though, it's like kicking off Paul McCartney. He like, to us, that's like, oh my God, you would get rid of Paul McCartney. But to them, that's like getting rid of your cousin Jim
but still, like,
that records at the
Paul,
same
get out of
studio.
here. You know,
Go on, Paul.
Your voice don't match what we're doing in here.
Yeah, well, apparently, like, he was taking it, like, he wasn't taking it serious enough, they said. He was joking around about some stuff, and to them, they were wanting to make, like, a really serious album. So they, like, he recorded stuff and everything, but they just said, no, we ain't going to use it.
They had a very serious message that they were wanting to convey that did not require anybody to be joking about it. It's
exactly.
Some serious content. We're trying to say something.
But it was a very gutsy move on their part, because before Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd wasn't anything. I mean, yeah, they had like The Saucer Full of Secrets and some of those, but I mean, before Dark Side of the Moon, they didn't have like a #1 album or anything like that. Nobody really knew who they were. So to kick off a Beatle on your album, that probably would have helped it skyrocket. That is a gutsy move on their part. But it's respectful,
It was
too.
the right move.
Yeah.
It was the right move 100%. But it wouldn't have been nothing had they not experienced what had happened with Sid at the time.
That's the kind of cajones that define great artists, in my opinion. Man.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't want to ride off of Paul McCartney's coattail, and he didn't even get the message that they were trying to convey. I'd say is why they told him.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why they're done it, and it's so cool that they were that passionate and. Well, they cared that much about what they were trying to do. You need to see more artists do stuff like that nowadays. Say no to these big people that's trying to control what you're doing.
That's where we're at, man. We are not looking for a record label. Like obviously, we recorded an album without one, and we got to do whatever we wanted to do on it.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing that anybody in the entertainment field can do nowadays. Even with it's like when me with stand-up comedy, I don't have to have a manager. I can be my own manager. With y'all, you can literally be the producer, the executive producer, the manager, the publicist. But back in the '60s, you couldn't do anything like that.
I mean, you didn't have. Nobody was going to be able to build a recording studio on their own. So whenever I learned that Pink Floyd said no to Paul McCartney, I had so much more respect for him. I was like, that is awesome. Dude, those guys, the best.
Real baller move.
Nobody's ever been better or ever will be, in my opinion.
When it comes to rock like that, I don't know anybody that could like hold a candle to them.
I mean, I feel like it transcends rock. Like Pink Floyd transcends rock and roll. It's not just rock and roll.
And also how timeless their music is.
Exactly. See, like, be relevant 100 years from now.
Yeah.
It will still say the same things about the human condition that it said then.
Yeah, exactly.
Every 50 years, sales for Dark Side of the Moon, the album, will skyrocket again. They'll be like, well, this 100-year-old album's already went platinum for the 95th time. People just keep buying it.
Didn't they don't they have the world record for the most, like the album that was on the charts for the longest? It was like 200 and something weeks.
Yeah, Dark Side was on there for a long time.
Yeah, there's like some statistic that like 1 out of 5 people in the United States owned that album at one time. 1 out of 5 out of everybody.
That's pretty sick.
I don't know if that's right, but I'm pretty sure. Something like that. There's just all types of fun facts that you can look up about that album. It's interesting.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's like something that people will try to like push on other people. It's like, dude, you have to do this before you die. You have to sit down and listen to Dark Side of the Moon from front to back. You have to before you die. Like it's an experience. It's like a rite of passage.
Have y'all done the Wizard of Oz thing? The Dark Side of the Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
I've done the same thing with Enema and Nightmare Before Christmas. Did you know that? Did you know that Tool's Enema and Nightmare Before Christmas sync up pretty well too?
Dude,
like that?
That's crazy.
It's pretty awesome.
Whoa. Well,
but to pivot
Tool,
off,
that was another band that was kind of experimental, had the long songs and kind of mainstream. They were close. Kind of close to what Pink Floyd done.
They were back in the day referred to as the Pink Floyd of that generation.
I can definitely see that. That makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense.
Look at it for that generation, early '90s lens. Yeah, they definitely revolutionized what metal was about at that point in time.
If you break it down to its base elements, they got a lot of the same things happening. They put things together a lot of the same ways, just songs and layers, and they thought about things more than just chorus, verse, end of the song.
Yeah.
They put a lot of thought into it. A lot of people don't really put that much thought into it. You don't have to now because your computer puts all the thought into it. So all you have to do is pick what you want to hear, and the computer does the rest. And you don't even have to know how to play guitar. They make machines now that attach it to the neck of your guitar so that you only have to just press a button to play a chord. You just whoop, an E, whoop, a G.
For real, they have something like, what's that called?
Oh man, I don't remember what it's called.
I don't even know how to Google.
It made me furious to see it.
Well,
I straight up just hated on it. I was like, no way, this is wrong. You can't just pull the technicality out of being a musician and call it doing something. You're not doing anything.
You can't pull the human element out of playing a piece of wood with steel strings stretched across it and achieve the same effect.
Chord buddy?
Never
Chord buddy, yeah, that's one of them. There's a couple of different designs.
I didn't know.
Mind blown right now.
How does that help?
I didn't know this was a thing.
What's that for?
Why would you even need something like that? Why would you own a guitar if you were just going to buy that?
$45 on Amazon. What kind of drives me crazy, and to each his own, I guess. I can't be too judgmental, but I seen somebody at a show one time that had these things over their fingers, so that whenever they like do the chords, it doesn't hurt their fingers. I was like, that's cheating. I don't know about that.
I'm gonna be a little bit of a.
That's gross.
Pardon my French, but like, if you do that, just sell your guitar. Just put it down and move on.
I mean, to me, that would make it even more difficult first. But I just think that like that's almost. I'm not a guitar player, but to me, that would almost be like a badge of honor. You know, when you have those
dude, I'm proud of these calluses right here.
Yeah.
I can tap these things on something. They make a nice clicky noise sometimes, you know.
People are just getting
candles out super easy.
Yep.
I would say so, actually. It just, people are getting, I'm becoming a bunch of wusses. I don't know. I've
seen what you're talking about, and I don't know how you'd even be able to feel the string.
The only reason you should have plastic on the ends of your fingers and it should be touching your guitar is if you're Tony Iommi or someone else who has had a similar accident that needs that. In any other case, like, stop being a wuss and just build your calluses up. You probably need the practice anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're running from it that much, you probably need the practice anyway.
One of the coolest photos that I've ever seen in my entire life. That would not have been possible if it was for those things. Zakk Wylde is shredding this guitar, and apparently at that show he had played so hard that his fingers were bleeding, and you just seen blood running down the guitar as he was playing it. And that was one of the sickest pictures that I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm like, that's what rock and roll is all about.
Yeah, dude.
Right there is that passion, that energy.
If you've put in the time to get, and I'm not saying I'm some kind of great guitar player, but if you've put in the time to get decent at it, like at some point or another, you've probably made your hands bleed. From doing it. I mean, whether it's like a split nail or, you know, tore a callus off or something like that, I know I for sure have done it. I remember I used to have a little PV Predator Pro, and I know for sure I bled on that thing.
Yeah, to me, I mean, that shows how passionate you are about your music and what you're willing to go through to get good at it. Yeah. And without struggles like that, I just don't. I don't know how much that helps a guitarist's
and I
character.
Think that's one of the big problems is like the with modern music is that all the soul is gone out of it.
All the musicality. Sapped away from it. Now it's a formula. It's formulaic, and it's made so that massive amounts of people can understand it and want to hear it. And they even take it down to modeling the beat after the average heartbeat. Like most pop songs you hear on the radio, same BPM. They recycle progressions over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, have y'all seen those pictures on the internet, like where they'll show like just like song mashups? That's why you have so many of them. Is exactly what you're talking about.
Well, it's like a circle of fifths.
Yeah,
like Journey, Don't Stop Believing, and like
there's a video
other songs
of a comedy group from like Australia, and the song's called Bird Plane. And it's like I think they worked up like 45 different songs, different pop songs into one song based on one progression and whether or not they were playing it regular or double time.
Wow.
And they just keep cycling through telling you the whole time, pop music's easy to write. Look at this. These are all the same.
Well, see, like I think the music is important, of course, but I like what Willie says. With country music, all you need is 3 chords and the truth. Mm-hmm. So yeah, even like the music might become repetitive, but to me, it's all about what they're singing about or rapping about or whatever type of music that you're into. The message.
If you don't have a message, then why are you even making art?
See, that to me
is art if it doesn't have a message.
Yeah, to me that bothers me more than just the music itself.
I saw a really good quote the other day, and it was that art should disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed.
I like that.
I think that's about as succinct as I could ever put it.
If
it doesn't have a message, it doesn't do that.
100 years from now, people are still going to know what Dark Side of the Moon is and who it was written by, but they ain't going to know who Lil Wayne is. They ain't gonna know who Jay-Z is. Those guys.
Well, those are probably the worst examples you could pick from hip hop.
Yeah, well, yeah, them two are
huge.
Yeah,
huge.
Jay-Z is
yeah, but like Lil Wayne has stayed relevant for a good 20 plus years.
I can do a good argument. I can do a good argument on Lil Wayne. I can do a really because we were talking about him. I would say people more like Lil Pump. People, anybody with like nowadays with Lil in front of their name, Lil Uzi Vert or whoever them people are. I don't even know any of the music by these people. I just know their names.
Yeah.
But and I forgot where we were going with this. Lil Wayne. Anyways, see, we were talking about him over the weekend. Me and my wife were because like she brought up the question of who's the greatest rapper of all time.
Oh,
and see,
Aesop Rock.
I was well, yeah,
straight up.
but. See, I grew up on classic rock whenever I lived in Virginia with all my family, but I moved to Georgia whenever I was like 8. And of course, you had a big hip hop scene down there. Mm-hmm. So I grew up on like the old dirty South hip hop with like old school Young Jeezy and Outkast and people like that. T.I., love T.I., dude. So like whenever it comes to this mumble rap, I'm not a fan. But when like anything 2009 before, I like it, especially the old school hip hop. Mm-hmm. But with Lil Wayne, I said that he's probably the greatest rapper of all time. And my wife, she was
the greatest showman for sure.
But if you think about it, like I can't name another rapper that has his type of catalog and also just the sheer influence on his genre. Mm. I mean, nobody else even comes close that I can think about.
Dude. He started when he was like, what, 13, 14?
Yeah, he has mixtapes that are bigger than most people's albums.
Yeah, like No Ceilings.
Exactly. I mean, that's how...
It's like you can count on Lil Wayne at least like clockwork, at least once every 5 years, he's going to have a big, huge, mainstream, successful album.
Yeah.
Like that album, have you listened to the album he put out last year?
Oh, dude, my favorite one was Uproar on that. Yeah. Or was that... No, that was Carter 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to listen to that one much.
Do it, man. Dude. It's him doing what he does best. Like, there's not a lot of hooks. It's just straight bars. There are whole songs that don't have a hook.
Like, Lil Wayne has, like, I don't know if he's the best rapper in that sense, but he definitely has, like, one of the biggest impacts.
Well, I mean, look at, like, he's very forward-thinking, I think, in a lot of ways, because if you look at, like, Rebirth and him trying to infuse rock music into rap, look at what's happening nowadays.
Yeah.
That's like a big thing right now. Is a lot of these young emo rappers and stuff are starting to cross over into rock music now, and the same like playing guitars, like Machine Gun Kelly, people like that.
And Lil Wayne, he done that. What was that one album, Reload or Reborn or something?
Rebirth.
Rebirth, yeah.
And that wasn't a great album by him, in my opinion. But
Drop the World was a good song.
The idea of what he was trying to do was very forward thinking.
Haven't they been doing that for a while now, though?
What do you mean? Well, typically, it was the other way around. Yeah. Typically, you had rock bands that would bring in rappers.
Macho Man Randy Savage was a rapper
like
one time.
Bizkit and Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah. But like Lil Wayne though, like he tried to do the like rock stuff before anybody else was doing it. He had all the face tattoos before anybody else had it. He was doing auto-tune before anybody else had it.
SoundCloud rap would not exist without Lil Wayne.
No, it wouldn't. I mean, with Lil Wayne, he might not be the best rapper alive, but his
seriously
impact,
good.
Yeah, his impact on just hip hop as a whole cannot be disputed.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
I must confess, I'm out of my element when it comes to rap. I can't listen to. I don't listen to a lot of music anyway. Like I've got what I like because that's what I listened to when I was a lot younger, and occasionally I listen to some music. But for the most part, I can't do it without it influencing what we're trying to write and play.
And we try to avoid that. Like if we're in a period of heavy writing, I won't listen to music either.
That's good, though.
I just whatever comes out of us, that's what I want.
Oh, yeah. Well, fun fact about Lil Wayne real quick. Alex downstairs, he said that he started recording when he was 11.
Yeah, super young, dude. He had like a big album by the time he was 13, 14.
It's crazy. Well, what was that one song back in the day? It was like one of the first big hits that he was on. He was featured on it. And he was like 15 at the time.
Was it Stunting Like My Daddy?
Yeah, Birdman? That was it, man. Yeah,
I remember listening to that, man, and loving it. But like,
he's
very influenced by the old school stuff, like New Orleans hip hop and like house music and stuff from down there. Yeah. So his influences go back real far.
I like his interview whenever he was being arrested the first time and they were doing the interview and he was just shutting down every question. He's gangsta. Mm-hmm. Lil Wayne.
Our goal is to one day play a gig on the moon.
That would be pretty. Metallica's probably going to be the first one to do that.
No way, man.
They got all 7 continents.
I don't think commercial space flight's going to get there before Metallica is too old.
Well, there's already been a guitar player in space. That's already happened. One of the NASA guys brought his guitar.
But that was with a grandpa's guitar. That was an acoustic. I'm talking about echoes, delays, gain.
How can you get all the... Well, they have to have electricity, right? How does that work?
We want to test that. Space is a vacuum. There is no sound theory. We want to put that to the test.
I think we're going to have to build a dome on the moon, I think is what's
team up with Elon Musk and he'll help you figure all this out.
Maybe we should when we share this video, we should tag Elon Musk in it and be like, hey, help us make this happen.
And that dude is crazy enough to like hit y'all back up and like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he might do it. If we put it on Twitter, he might be like, all right, let's figure it out.
If he was born here in America, that dude would have already ran for president by now. Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day, like who's going to be the next celebrity type figure too. And it has to be a crazy billionaire. Has to be. You would think.
Maybe.
I'm not going to get like political or anything.
I'd like to see Snoop Dogg run for president.
That would be kind of fun.
I'd vote for Snoop Dogg.
Honestly, it would be funny, but he wouldn't get the votes. No. But if Denzel Washington ran for president, he'd get straight up voted in.
You never know, man.
White people would be voting him in. Like,
that's Denzel.
I love that guy.
That voice.
Just calm,
or Morgan
Freeman.
Morgan Freeman would be another good one.
Morgan Freeman would be an excellent president. Mm-hmm.
He would make you feel calm and secure.
He'd be able to explain things to you in a way that you understand.
What about the American? What if The Rock ran for president? I don't think that's even far-fetched.
Put the people's elbow on Iraq.
I don't even think that's far-fetched. I don't even think that's far-fetched. I think he could realistically do it.
Didn't he talk about it at one time?
I think so. I remember seeing an article, something about it. Like, that would be crazy.
Like I'm not political by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not going to dive into it. But like, really, man, I would just because there's going to be another one. There has to be.
The precedent has been set at this point.
Exactly. So I mean, like, it's an open playing field for anybody if you have enough money and influence. Right. So 2024, you're going to have somebody come out of the woodworks, and I just don't know who it's going to be.
Damn millennials are going to elect somebody ridiculous.
You're a millennial.
You're a millennial.
Dude, I didn't know that I fell into the category of a millennial until like last week or the week before. It broke my heart because I was like, I'm not millennial. It's everybody.
The thing about it is, though, most of the stupid crap that gets attributed to millennials is actually Gen Z stuff.
Yeah,
it's kids that were born like 95 or later. So like, I'm late millennial. I'm 92. So. Yeah.
Well, I was 95, like so I caught it like
80s.
Right at the end. Yeah. If I would have got born like 1 year later, I would have been in Z.
Dangerous territory, my friend.
Yeah, man.
I was born in the 80s.
That's millennial, dude. It's like late 70s. Gen X was after the baby boomers, like the late 60s to the late 70s, and then it's millennials from the early 80s to the mid 90s.
Pepsi commercial thing from back in the day.
The Pepsi generation. No, that's how it shakes out. You are for sure a millennial.
What is it now?
All the things that people like to act like they are. Like millennials are like the oldest millennials at this point are like in their 40s. dude, working.
What is it nowadays? Like, what's this type of generation
Gen
called?
Z is the ones that are like teenagers right now that are coming to age that are like eating Tide Pods.
But if they
wearing really tight pants and fedoras.
Fedoras are kind of cool-ish.
Wearing Champion like it's some kind of designer brand when we could have bought it at Walmart back when we were kids.
Per crew. One per crew.
Yeah.
You're gonna have the and one next, like all that.
Yeah, and one's gonna blow up, or like Shaqs. Shaqs are gonna get big. Shaq tennis shoes, dude. They're still at Walmart.
Still?
And actually, I learned that he donates half of the money he makes from every pair of shoes to like kids in the inner cities and stuff like that.
Man,
if I'm not mistaken,
I did not know that. That's
let me have
cool.
him check that. Yeah. But he does donate a lot of those proceeds to some charity or something. And like he had offers to put his shoes in nicer stores and stuff, and he didn't want to do it.
You know, Shaq
he
used
wanted to keep them cheap.
You know, he used to be a rapper.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I got vinyl records.
Dude,
like
Shaq can play bass as well.
He was also the genie.
Yeah,
it wasn't Sinbad. It was Shaq. Apparently, I don't know about all that.
Talking about the Mandela effect.
Yeah,
we don't need to get into.
Let's not.
Hey, one thing that I did want to ask y'all about though.
CERN did it. CERN toward the
It was the Bearstein Bears. They're the one that started it all. Those dang bears.
Hadron Super Collider.
I was in Head Start to second grade in the early 90s.
Dude,
I vividly remember reading those books. Like they were all over the classroom back in those days. Like,
man,
if you read a book between 90 and 94 in a school, most likely it was the Berenstain Bears.
Well, nowadays though, like scientists are already proving that different dimensions exist, and we don't know like how necessarily to get into those or what starts them or like whatever.
You know what the Hadron Super Collider is? CERN?
Is that the one that stabilized the atom and then teleported
the Super
it?
Collider is, I know what you're talking about there, but no, the Super Collider is this thing, and I'm not a scientist, so I'll give you my most basic rundown of it from an idiot, okay? But they shoot subatomic particles at each other at speeds approaching the speed of light in order to try to find this particle that they thought existed. It was called the Higgs boson. And that opened and went.
What's the functional. Higgs boson? Sorry,
they call it the God particle. I don't know what all that means. I don't know. That's as far as my understanding of it goes. But there was like a debate among the scientific community as to whether or not the energies they were creating were going to make tiny black holes, and whether or not it would destroy the Earth. And this was in 2008 that it happened. And if you think about it, things went kind of crazy after 2008. So my theory is the universe was destroyed by CERN in 2008. In an alternate timeline, and now we're living the weird reality that's left over in the reality where it didn't.
Whoa, that's deep.
That's where I think we're at, bro.
But the thing is, and most people would look at that as like far out there and far-fetched and a conspiracy theory, but these scientists like really are on the verge of playing God.
Nuclear physics are crazy, man.
Yeah, and I mean, like we need to be.
He's making it up.
No,
like, it's there.
Yeah,
they have that.
They had concerns about it, like. There were, I mean, you can look up news articles from 2008. They were like, "Is this going to create black holes and destroy the Earth?" Like, we don't know.
They were basically
they fired this thing. This thing's like 17 miles long, and they fired this thing up and said, "All right, let's do it, boys." Like, who knows what's going to happen?
And all it takes is that one scientist to be gutsy enough, or just not care enough to push that. It's
kind of like the Manhattan Project. They weren't sure that wasn't going to set the entire atmosphere on fire.
Is that the one? Is that the one with the ship that disappeared?
No, that's the first nuclear bombs.
Oh, well,
when they were first theorizing it, like there were a lot of scientists that were like, "Hey, man, if you set this thing off, there's a good chance it's going to set the entire atmosphere on fire."
Kill us all.
Like the math shook out to make that more likely than the alternative.
It all pretty much reads out like the horrible accident that created the supervillain in the first place. You know,
well, that's another thing I was thinking about too. With all these like crazy billionaires, I mean, Elon Musk is already a real life Tony Stark. I mean, it's a real thing.
You could order a flamethrower,
but like
right now,
and to right now, it seems like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all these really rich people have a good head on their shoulders. But will there come a time where there's a crazy billionaire that's off his rocker and that has enough money just to do whatever he wants to with it and becomes the first ever like real life evil genius?
And here's another thing that people don't consider. They don't realize how powerful these men really are, because the difference between like a millionaire and billionaire sounds similar when you say those things, and it's easy to lump them all into one category and say, oh, that's rich people. But there is such a vast difference between a millionaire and a billionaire. Like if you were to convert dollars to seconds, 1 million seconds is like a week. 1 billion seconds is like 34 years.
Yeah.
Like there's a vast difference, and they have so much power with that much money. And I'm not sure that Jeff Bezos isn't crazy.
Man, let me tell you something, buddy. You don't get that much money unless you're just a little bit evil. I mean,
well, yeah. Well, nobody gets that much power.
Nobody has that much
exactly.
without doing some really shady things.
There's some kind of despotic behavior going on there, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly. Like imagine if Kim Jong-un had as much money as Jeff Bezos did.
Oh, God.
I mean, that would be scary to think about. But the thing is, though, that possibility is not out of the realm. Yeah, it's not. That's totally possible in this day and age.
The point is, like, it's probably a little bit of moral ambiguity involved in anybody that gets to that point of being that rich. So the possibility for any of them to just snap and go off the deep end is there.
I was kind of worried whenever I heard Jeff Bezos was getting divorced because I didn't know how much that woman was going to take, and I kind of got worried. I'm like, oh, I hope she don't make him mad. Yes, we'll see what happens here.
Yeah,
but have y'all heard of the Philadelphia Project? That's the one I got confused with what you were talking about earlier.
I have heard about them teleporting. They
teleported a ship, a U.S. naval ship, in 1943, supposedly done all of this.
But there is also like documented proof from recent science that they have taken a particle and put it in a teleporter here and moved it. And it may have only been a few feet, but like moved it along some kind of edge of a different dimension and got it to pop back up into our perceivable dimensions in a different physical place. Like
but they've been working on stuff like that since the 40s that we know of. Right. You know, so and also I come from a very big military family. They kind of and I'll ask questions like that because I had family members that were in weapon development and stuff like that. And one of the things that they've told me is that they'll have patents on information and stuff that they can release to the public. So like I remember them talking about them teleporting that atom, but they probably done that 15 years ago that we know of, and that they're just now releasing that information. We have no idea. They could already be teleporting people by now, and we have no idea.
You wouldn't know it.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a weird thing, man.
Governments do a lot of shady stuff.
Oh yeah, that's government.
You can imagine if we have what we have, what they must have that they ain't telling nobody about. Because
well, there's a lot of stuff that has fell into that category. I'm not going to say names of my family members, but I had family members that were in the Vietnam era, and they had seen it was kind of like a CD or a DVD, but it just held information on them for certain devices.
Well,
but that's what started the whole Laserdisc, CD, DVD movement. They had stuff like that back in the 70s. Super glue, I think, was invented for World War I for the battlefield to like help soldiers put their cuts back together. The military was using super glue way before the public ever knew anything about it. Same thing with GPS systems, and the list goes on and on.
That's the same thing with UFOs. They've been studying UFOs for decades, and they've always denied it. Now they're releasing footage of UFOs, and they're
like admitting that there was something happening that they had no idea what it was and could not explain.
That it still happens.
Well, it's coming to the day and age. See, like back in the day, only a handful of people would have seen something. If you would have seen something, you didn't have a camera or anything ready to get whatever it was. And
immediately discredited.
Exactly. But nowadays, where everybody has this supercomputer right in the palm of their hand, they have to say that something is out there. I don't know if like we have actual aliens or even if our government knows what's going on, but they definitely
mathematically it's impossible that we're alone in this universe.
Well, I try to explain that to people. Anybody that believes that we're alone in this universe really needs to do some research into astronomy. It does not
Fermi
make
paradox,
sense.
You know, the numbers of it just don't shake out.
Well, this is what I like to tell people. I say that our sun is a star. It has what is like 8 or 9 planets revolving around it. However you look at Pluto, but
in a planetoid.
But you look up in the sky here in little old Harold, Kentucky, and see hundreds of thousands of stars.
And every little inch of that sky that you can perceive is billions of stars, trillions of stars.
Exactly.
Maybe, and each of those has how many planets rotating around them.
Exactly.
And that's only like a 10% of the sky. as we know it that we can even observe.
Yeah.
So,
unfathomably large.
it's what we can observe is so small and it's so large to us that it's absolutely ridiculous nonsense to think that we're the only living things anywhere.
Yeah.
That just doesn't even make sense. It's not logical.
I just don't know if we matter that much.
It's a very narcissistic worldview to think that we're alone. You know,
but like, I just think that they could possibly be leaving us alone because, I mean, we've shown a great aptitude for destruction. Yeah.
And we may not have the knowledge, but we're really good at manipulating things to make them deadly.
Look, there's a whole lot of reported cases by high-ranking members of the military, people that worked at these nuclear bases who saw UFOs around the bases, experienced power failures, things of that nature. Yeah. And they said it was almost like they were just flexing on them. Like they just showed up, they shut everything down and was like, boom, we can do this anytime we want. And they just out into space they go.
Yeah, and maybe...
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, you know, I study a lot of history too, and a lot of ancient cultures will talk about the Watchers.
Hindus,
that's what,
especially. Like the Vedas, man.
Well, Hindu. I mean, Mayans, Aztecs.
You got saucers in cave paintings and etched into stone.
What are the chances that people on separate continents, and by those separate continents, I mean Africa and South America, around the same time period, were building pyramids that were aligned with similar constellations, and there was no like seafaring. Neither of them were seafaring cultures, the Egyptians and the Mayans, but they were both building pyramids aligned in similar fashions on totally separate continents around the same period of time, like within a relatively small window of time. What are the chances? Yeah.
But it's. But the sea faring thing though is one that kind of is tricky to me, because now they're showing evidence that they may have been traveling the seas at that time, but it was the
Phoenicians. I think are the earliest civilization they talk
because
about.
There's one I just learned about this like 2 weeks ago. I never knew this place existed, but in New Hampshire they have what they call America's Stonehenge, and it has a lot of the similar characteristics of the one in England whenever it comes to stones being aligned with the stars and all that, but it also has like sacrificial tables, and the list goes on and on and on. But it's this amazing site that they think was constructed about 4,000 years ago. And it had like, they can't, it doesn't match anything that the Native Americans had going on. It doesn't match anything that our European ancestors would have had, but it does match a lot of the Polynesians. And they think that that group of people, they don't exactly know how advanced they were. So they could have very well been traveling the seas.
That's always been my thing, too, is like, you know, there were cars that were built in the 50s. There's only a relatively short amount, like a one human lifespan ago, 70 years ago, that have now sat in yards and rusted away to the point that you would hardly be able to tell that they were there. So over the course of 4,000 years, like, who knows what all has disappeared? Who knows how advanced those civilizations were?
And that's
There's no way to know.
And I get into this argument so much with people because, whenever it comes to structures like Stonehenge or Machu Picchu,
stars that well, they weren't stupid.
But also back then, that's all they had going for them.
Right.
So like, I think that has to do with like the stars. But like, you had some weird stuff when it comes to the Watchers or just people that they said visited them. But
you ever do any research on the Nazca lines down in Peru?
Oh yeah,
big pictures. And people just thought, well, that's a weird-looking dog or that's a weird-looking monkey. It turns out they're directly related to specific constellations.
Yeah. And also, how do you design something like that without being able to get an aerial view of it?
From the ground, they designed it.
Wait, is that the one like where it's like these big images in the side of mountains that like are only visible from the air?
Plains in Peru. Yeah. They're
in the plateaus too. Like you got rising plateaus.
Mastodon talks about it in some of their lyrics.
And oh man, what else they have? They have what look like runways.
Yeah,
big, long, straight runways. A monkey, a couple of dogs.
Boys, we have jumped straight down the rabbit hole in here.
I love it. See, this is right up my alley. But to
let's
me,
get weird.
Hey, let's get weird. I don't care. See, but I like to think of the possibility though that there have been catastrophic events that have took place and basically put us back in the Stone Age.
The Hindu holy books, like if you look at them, like they talk about spaceships in the sky having nuclear battles.
Yeah. What was that? The battle of Rajin, I forget.
I can't remember the names of any of them, but like I know that the ships that they refer to specifically, I remember those were called Vimanas.
Yeah,
and there's like explanations of how they worked and stuff in there.
Like, but like you were saying though, and that's my one argument for lost civilizations. A lot of what we have nowadays, the shirts that we're wearing, us as a whole, all of this that's around us right now is not going to stand the test of time. Mm-hmm. But what does, if it's not purposely destroyed by human beings or in a catastrophic event or whatever, is stone structures. And that's why the pyramids, the Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, all of these old ancient sites are still there. And what's even crazier to think about is, is one day in a few thousand years, if there is another catastrophic event that puts us back in the Stone Age, one day Mount Rushmore is going to be like the Great Pyramids of Giza. And that's pretty crazy to think about.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
They're going to unearth George Washington's head at some point.
Like, here's another question.
What? There were people
Here's
here?
another question.
They done that right though, because apparently, and this isn't just in the National Treasure movie. This is a real thing. They like in Mount Rushmore. There's this area that they have like that's sealed off that has nothing but artifacts from America. Mm-hmm. So whenever people do find it, they're going to find a lot of what we were if it isn't all lost by then.
We'll find a mixtape with I am a real American.
Oh, man.
Wow, this place was awesome.
That's what I'm talking about. Great. Hulk Hogan dancing around to it, like obviously fake miming on a guitar.
Yeah. I heard a great quote the other day, and I've probably said this before on here, but it was from Einstein. He said, "I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but I know that World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." Mm-hmm. Man, that's a good quote.
He wrote that while he was working on the Manhattan Project.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
While they were building the atom bombs, man.
So even Einstein's like, God, I'm
yeah, dude, he knew it was a bad idea. A lot of those guys knew it was a bad idea.
This is a terrible idea.
That's what I said. They thought that they might set the atmosphere on fire, but you know what? Like, it's all good. Well, let's try it anyway.
There's a whole lot of atmosphere. It's going to be hard to set it all on fire.
Atmosphere.
Man,
the math was there. Like I've read about that to a pretty healthy. I love history, man.
Yeah,
and I love especially the untold parts of history that you don't learn in an elementary school textbook that you have to look for yourself.
Well, nowadays history, in my opinion, it almost shouldn't even be taught in school. Because they're rewriting history every single day. If you're going to teach history in school, you're going to have to do it on a day-to-day basis because they're rewriting history every single day. Like they found some.
I think it's dangerous. There's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah, there is.
History. We get the subjective history according to our government at the time.
The winner writes the history books. I love that quote. But I mean, like they think that. There was human beings here in America 130,000 years ago because they found mastodon bones in San Francisco, and like the mastodon bones were cracked open, and the only creature that could have done that at the time were humans. And like another bone was like put into the ground vertically. Again, we're the only ones that could have done that. It's and that rewrites all of history right there.
Or like the various other offshoots of primate evolution that may have been killed out or died out by Homo sapiens. Up to this point, there were the Denisovans, and like Neanderthals are a little bit different than Homo sapiens. Cro-Magnons are a little bit different. There was a lot of interbreeding, but there could have been an entirely different branch of evolution of human that was here at that time.
Yeah,
even
3 years ago down in Peru, they were going through some of those old structures and stuff, and they come across some bodies. Some of them were really small, but one of them was the size of a full-grown female adult. Mm-hmm. It had 3 fingers, 3 toes, and an elongated skeleton. They dated it 1,800 plus years old, at least 1,800 years old, covered in a dust that dried it out and preserved it and kept it so well preserved that all the internal organs were still there and everything.
That's weird.
They've DNA tested it. They don't know what it is because it's not human, but it's there. They found it. It's there. It exists somewhere.
Well, see, that's another thing. Like why with all these different types of animals and subspecies of animals?
Dragons, dude.
Yeah,
dragons very well could have existed.
Who knows?
If they could fly, they probably had hollow. Let me say this because I'm a big fan of dragons because dragons are dope. But Dragons definitely could have existed. A lot of cultures around the world would talk about them at the same time. What are you doing to me right now? Oh, Game of Thrones. Okay. But if they could fly, dude, they probably had hollow bones like birds, and those are not going to be preserved in fossils. Why do all these different cultures have dragons?
Why do you think they have hollow bones, though?
Huh?
Why do you think they have
for the fact that they flew? Like, that's
birds
how
have hollow bones?
Yes, that's how birds are able to fly. That's how their weight is low enough, and they still have the bone structures that have wings that large because their bones are hollow.
Yeah, man. Think about the inside of a plane. It's hollow. The wings hollow.
But also though, like they might not have been as big as everybody says they were either.
They may not,
you know,
Hashtag Dragongate.
Well, stuff goes extinct every single day. I mean, it's kind of far-fetched to say that something didn't exist. Kind of like Bigfoot, you know? That could have been another subspecies of human, like we were talking about. Who knows?
Or it could just be some guy's drunk friend out in the woods a-hollering.
Yeah.
That could be all that was.
I just,
a lot of those videos are just a drunk guy hollering.
You go out into the woods in eastern Kentucky any given night, you're liable to hear some strange hollering.
Have y'all seen the thing about the Yeti that they discovered in Indonesia? I think it is. Like at this monk temple, they have like the top of the skull and the hand of it, and they won't let anybody do any type of testing on it because they consider it sacred. And apparently, like one of the monks found it in a cave like a few years ago. I forget how long it was, but yeah, they won't let anybody touch it. Man, it just you never know. You never know.
They found that body in Peru. They wouldn't let the government touch it, as the government would just adulterate it or put out false information about it. They wanted to figure out what they were looking at first. Then they would release that. Well,
that's another thing too that's really pushed back science is just egos and disinformation. See, I was watching this. I forget exactly which archaeological site it was, but there was the scientist that had a theory about it. I've went down the rabbit hole of so many of these videos. I can't remember which one this is, but at the site, he had a theory as to what happened here and who lived here or whatever, and anything that didn't fit that theory, he would have it destroyed. I mean, all these ancient artifacts and everything just to kind of,
dude, you got to look at like throughout history, people like Kepler and his model of the solar system. He was considered a crackpot, absolute madman at his time. His time, and now we're like, okay, so he basically figured out that planets are round.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and we're going to do the same thing with a lot of scientists like that nowadays. Graham Hancock's one of my favorite, but people look at him as him.
Like his TED talks about like psychedelia. And
he is fascinating.
Very cool.
But just like you can, but how ridiculed he is by the scientific community just breaks my heart. But he does get to kind of shove it in their face every once in a while when they prove it's right. Not to get off track, but I wanted to ask y'all about this because I didn't know what in the world this was whenever you shared it on Facebook. What is the Edgar Cayce? Case?
Edgar Cayce.
Cayce?
See, I was not actually aware of him until I shared that meme. But apparently he was a mysticist, and he was very rooted in Christian ideologies. He was like a pastor or something of that nature. But he talks about some pretty interesting stuff, man. Like I started reading very lightly on what he was talking about. And you're talking about the music. Once you understand music, you'll understand all things.
Yeah, if you learn music, you'll learn all there is to know.
Let me quote Bill Hicks and say that all matter is just energy condensed to a slow vibration. Yep. Vibration controls everything in this universe, period.
So, and here's Ted with the news.
Yeah, and here's Ted with the news.
Well, if you watch anything about physics or astronomy and you hear these really, really smart scientist guys talk about the universe, they always talk about it in musical terms. Always. Like, I've watched probably 200 UFO documentaries. When they start talking in bold, big terms about we are this to the universe, it's always in musical terms. Always. They never not do it in musical terms.
The state of something, the state of matter that something is determined by how fast it's vibrating. There's no scientific explanation for why you can hear a certain frequency and it will make you feel a certain way. And like, have you ever heard of Adam Neely? You know who that is? He's a guy that does a YouTube channel. It's a lot about music theory and stuff like that. He did a sort of like, it wasn't at a TED Talk. I can't remember exactly what the name of the event was, but he did a talk that was similar to like a TED Talk about how polyrhythms. Do you know what a polyrhythm is? When you take like, for instance, so Tool uses a lot of polyrhythms in their music. And if you take a drummer, they will play something that's in odd time, like 5, with their hand, and then what they're doing on the kick will be in 4. And those two things will overlap in the same space of time, even though they're different time signatures. That's what's called a polyrhythm. So you'll have a 5/4 beat over a 4/4 beat, but they both resolve at the same time. So it creates a really weird sound. But if you take a polyrhythm and speed it up, so the point at which a rhythm turns into a frequency is around 18, like somewhere between like 18 to 20 hertz is where the human ear starts to perceive a rhythm as a frequency. If you take a polyrhythm, like a 6/5/4 polyrhythm, so there's one beat that's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in the same space of time, there's one that's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's another one that's doing 4 in the same space of time. If you take that polyrhythm and speed it up past that 18 hertz barrier, it becomes a major chord.
Dude.
And then if you take those same relationships of frequencies and speed them up octave orders by orders of 12, you can identify them to the frequencies of light in the visible light spectrum. Our entire universe is based around that 12 that I can't explain it, but vibration controls everything.
I seen this one video where they took the sound of vibrations and somehow put it over sand, and certain vibrations would make a certain design in the sand. That blew my mind.
That's what it like. To understand music is to understand all things, because there is no, like, you just know it in your heart. Like, if you're somebody who's really into music, whether you're a musician or not, you know that a certain sound, a certain collection of sounds will make you feel a certain way. There is no scientific basis for why music can transmit emotion from one human to another. It's magic.
It really is. And one of the most magical things about music, in my opinion, is how it can bring everybody together. You know, no matter what type of background you're from, whether you're country or city, or no matter ethnicity, age, everybody likes music.
And everybody is receptive to similar things.
Yeah. But it's weird, though, because not a lot of people like art, like just paintings. Not everybody likes sports. Not everybody likes a lot of stuff. But everybody likes music
to some degree or another.
Yeah,
and the people who don't like music are real weird birds. Like, there are a few and far between people who just don't like music at all, but they are some weird cats, man.
If you get to talking to those people, though, I've talked to a few of them, and you'll find little glimpses. They'll like the song to this TV show that they like, or there's still that they say that they don't, but in little cases,
at some point, and a lot of that goes back to like when we were tribal societies. I think, a lot of like war drums, tribal war drums, stuff like that started as ways to, if you got separated from your tribe and you were traveling in the night trying to find them again, and you heard a rhythm that wasn't the one that your tribe typically did, you'd be like, well, I'm not going to go over there. That's a different group of people. But then if you heard the one that was, you'd be like, there's my people. I'm going to them. That still happens. People still group themselves based on what kind of sounds they like.
Man, never thought about that. Dude, we got deep on this one. I loved it. But man, we've been talking for so long right now.
Yeah, we went deep. Oh man.
Hey, it was fun though. Oh, wow. God, this was fun.
This was a lot of fun. Shout out though.
Throw as many shouts as you need.
So album.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We were talking about the album. Yeah.
February 26th.
That's a Friday too. Nice.
Yeah. But we're dropping the album on February 26th. We will also be doing a live stream concert from the Mountain Arts Center studio that day. And that concert will be benefiting the Dance Blue Clinic at UK.
Nice, man. That's cool.
We're going to try to take donations during the live stream, and anything that we make, like the show itself is already paid for. Everything's already done in that regard. And we're going to try to take donations and donate all of them to Dance Blue, because my son, over the past year, while we were making this album, came down had a tumor behind his eye.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And we had to go up there, and I didn't really have any way to give back to him, but if I can use the music to do that, that's what I'm trying to do.
That's cool, man.
Hopefully we can raise a little bit of money, and people will be able to, throw $5 on it or something that they would be spending on something else, and we can raise some money to help them out.
And where is this going to be? Is this going to be on your Facebook page?
Yeah, we'll announce everything officially. Like, this is the first time we've mentioned this to anybody outside of our own
exciting
group. So we'll announce everything, and we'll have a lot of news about it on the page, and we'll establish links and everything. We're going to try to stream it to multiple platforms.
Cool, man.
We're going to try to go to YouTube and Instagram and Facebook at least, but we'll have to see how that shakes out exactly.
Nice. Well, y'all are going to be in good hands with Brandon.
Yeah. And we're going to be performing the album from front to back.
Nice.
Like we're gonna do the whole album live the day of the release.
And do you know what time or anything?
Just don't have a specific time yet, but it's going to be like I want to try to time it so that we finish our performance of the album at the same time as the album officially drops.
Cool, dude. So, that man. Y'all are. I like you. I like your minds.
We try to be thoughtful about things, man. There's a lot of deliberation that goes on.
More artists need to be that way, though, because you can really care. You can see that you care a lot about what you guys are doing.
It's the most important thing to us, man. Like I live for it. I live for playing music. Like I live for my kids, first and foremost. But like outside of that, everything else in my life could fall away. And if I could still pick up a guitar and play music with these dudes, I'm okay.
Well, man, it has been an absolute pleasure. It has been a lot of fun, dude.
I've had a great time.
I have too. And for everybody that wants to check y'all out and get updated about the album drop and the show and all that good stuff, how do they do it?
They can check us out on Facebook. That's our most prominent place, but we're also on Instagram. We're on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, anywhere they want to go. And I mean, I'm probably not as active on some of the other stuff as I am on Facebook. So I would say definitely check there first. But anywhere on there, they can get up with us.
Well, man, I fully support what y'all are doing. It's awesome to have this type of sound come out of this area. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for y'all.
Thank you, man. We're excited too. We think we might do something with it. Hopefully, we're gonna keep trying for sure. I mean, we're gonna work at it for as long as until somebody makes us stop. So,
and whenever y'all drop the album, man, hit me up and we'll have y'all back up here and we'll dive down even further down the rabbit hole.
Get off the beaten path, so to speak.
That sounds like a good plan.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Waylon Whitson, Stephen Cottle of Technicolor Nightmare,
Eli Griffith of the Homegrown Happy Hour podcast. Ladies and gentlemen.
See y'all next week, folks. Boom. Dude, that was